Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Man, it's been a minute. I haven't made a video in a very, very long time. But there's been a lot going on in my life, a lot going on in my mind. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is the future of Islam in America. And I've been thinking about this concept that under Islamic law, when a Muslim country or a Muslim ruler goes and conquers a people or conquers a land, they don't destroy the people. They don't kill the people. They don't kill their institutions. They leave everything as is. And there's a lot of, wisdom behind this move, right? Obviously, mercy is a very big part of being Muslim, but honestly, there's another aspect of it, right? The genius behind this move is the understanding that in 2-3 generations, right, that if the dominant culture, if the dominant society and the dominant ideology is Islam, then obviously, inshallah, in 2-3 generations, this community, these people that have been conquered, this land that has been conquered, they're going to become Muslim, right? Without bloodshed, without force. And it's interesting because us living here in America, it's almost the same thing, right? Like America and Americans in the West and the people outside of us, they're saying that, okay, let's leave them as is. Go ahead and do what you want. Because the understanding is that in 2-3 generations, Islam might be gone. Okay. And obviously this is a very big blanket statement. And there's obviously a lot of nuance to this, right? And what I really want to talk about is what can we do? What can we do as a Muslim community to make sure that Islam survives with our kids and our generation? And what I was thinking about really is, I think it's really going to depend on where you live. Right? And I think that's number one. Where do you live and are you close to a masjid, right? If you are not close to a masjid, if you are not close to a Muslim community, if you are not close to anything related to a Muslim, then it's going to be very likely that your progeny is not going to remain Muslim, right? Of course, there's always exceptions and they go and they might find a Muslim community. But for the most part, the number one thing that we can do is to live near Muslims, live near a masjid, live near a Muslim community. SubhanAllah, living in Chicago, living in the western suburbs of Chicago, it's like I'm living in a Muslim country. SubhanAllah, in a 3-mile radius, in a 2-mile radius, I have 3 different masajid. I can drive for 10 minutes and Roosevelt Road is right there. I could have halal almost anything you could think of, right? And I'm thinking about my life, my practice, my interactions with people are mostly all Muslims, right? My clients are Muslims. Most of my employees are Muslims. My friends, my family, my neighborhood, even my own neighborhood. When I walked outside today, subhanAllah, I'm playing with my child and all across, everywhere I look, there's hijabis, there's, Muslims, everybody saying salam to each other. We see each other at the masjid. I think this is how Islam is going to survive, right? By living close and keeping these communities together. I think the second way that we can protect our Islam in this country is that we have to get out of the survival mode, right? We are in the survival mode in the sense that when our parents came in the 70s and 80s, they came and they established a masjid, right? They established community centers so that Muslims can get together, they can pray, and that was really it, right? And everything else, the entire sphere of your life was outside of the masjid, okay? And I think what we need to do is to look beyond the masjid, to look beyond just the educational needs of the Muslims, the spiritual needs of the Muslims, but go beyond that, right? We need to take care of the financial needs. We need to take care of the social, emotional, mental, physical. All of these needs have to be provided by a community in order for that community to survive, right? We need to, in Chicago, right? Obviously, if you're living in Kansas in some random town, yeah, maybe you need some more masjids. But if you live in Dallas, you live in Chicago, you live in New York, you live in California, is more masjids really going to keep Islam alive? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And because you look at the churches, right? The churches are all dying. Just the other day, I'm driving by, this corner in Glen Ellen, and the church has been broken down and now there's houses being built there. We see so many churches being turned into masajid. And the same thing could happen to us, right? What we need to fulfill is the other needs of the Muslim community, right? We have this kind of pushback against these third spaces that we're trying to create, in America. And the whole point, and a lot of people, they talk about, well, you're going to take away people from the masjid. Well, in a society, when you're living in a community, yes, the masjid is going to be the center of that, but that can't be the only thing. We have we have people on the outskirts of our deen, on the outskirts of our society, people who move in, people who move out, people who are not so religious. They might identify as a Muslim. Maybe their parents or their grandparents are Muslim. Maybe they never entered into a masjid. But now if they go to, let's say, Kaaba House, right? And I know a lot of people hate on Kaaba House. But Kaaba House is a beautiful third space when you think about it, right? It's a Muslim-owned facility where people can come, they can talk to each other, they can hang out, they can get some coffee, and they can just talk and create community, right? You have places like Roots, you have places like Ta'alif, you have Iman, you have all of these different places. But for some reason, there's this pushback from the conservative side, and I consider myself pretty conservative, from the conservative side about tending to the social needs of the community. And again, obviously there's issues when it comes to fiqh and gender interaction and, watering down the deen or whatever the case might be. But there is an Islamic culture that can still permeate through these third spaces and bring community together, bring Muslims together. You don't think that Muslims are hanging out at weddings? You don't think Muslims are hanging out at, bars or college or wherever else they're hanging out? They're hanging out. But why not be able to facilitate better community places like gyms and, saunas and, domestic violence shelters or, daycares or elderly services? Why has this not been? Or hospitals or even law firms or endowments, these social and things beyond just the masjid we have not thought of. And I'm hoping and I pray, inshallah, in order for Islam to survive, that we actually think about these types of social needs and needs beyond just the religious and spiritual needs. Number 3, and I can think of so many different things, right? But I'm going to stop at number 3. And number 3 is that we need to educate our children. This sounds pretty extreme maybe, but leaving the education of our children to non-Muslims, to those who don't understand our values, to those who have a different agenda, a different ideology, in my mind, just does not make sense. And, we can debate about the public school, private school whole dichotomy. But at the end of the day, if the people that your children are with 8 hours a day don't believe in Islam, don't believe in Allah, they don't believe in objective reality or objective morality or objective truth, then how is that going to be passed down to our children? We talk about suhbah so much that you are going to be raised on the deen of your friend. Well, maybe you're going to be raised on the deen of your teacher. SubhanAllah, you're spending so much time with them. And I think that the private schools that we have, especially here in Chicago, CPSA, IFS, Carriers of Light, we have Ilm, we have so many, mashallah, so many choices. And I really think that we need to put effort and resources into creating more. There's so much demand. And I think that's going to be the other side of this, is creating and making sure that our children are getting taught by our own. We need to facilitate that education. We need to facilitate that Muslim culture, that Muslim identity, the Muslim ethos, so that they can, kind of save themselves from the onslaught of all of the pressure that is coming from outside of them. All of this kind of sounds a little insular, and I had this debate before, and it was at the Readers Guild. So if you're interested, we have a book club. But anyways, during the Malcolm X book, there was this debate that we were having about being integrationist and being separatist, right? And so you can kind of see that dichotomy between Malcolm X and MLK, right? MLK kind of had the integrationist mentality. MLK kind of had the separatist mentality. Towards the end of their life, obviously, they kind of came to the middle and kind of met. I'm leaning a little bit towards the separatist side, in the sense that in order for us to maintain who we are, in order for us to attract others to Islam, we have to live Islam. We have to, in a society, and show that Islam to other people. And that, inshallah, I believe will bring people to Islam. This whole thing about, mixing in and, this whole melting pot idea is not good for Islam, in my opinion. I think we need to create our own communities. We need to create our own societies. We need to create our own economies, our own, institutions and things like that, so that we can rely on ourselves and help ourselves before we can have impact on other people, before we can go and integrate and, be part of something that's not part of us. I think, inshallah, the future of Islam in America, especially in these pockets I think it's going to be great. May Allah accept, may Allah make this a reality. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow for Islam to rise from the West. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.